can go that way.
Right.
If you run in here, you're the first one in, and your DPS are probably not going to follow you. They can't. Right? Like, think of it like Doomfist. The only way he gets in there really quickly is E. He can't punch that corridor.
Right.
In the Reaper, the only way he gets in there is by running faster than you, but you're just constantly hitting W. There's no anchor. The thing about it is, like, to understand your Orisa positioning, base it off of your DPS, right? If you're running Doomfist and Reaper, they both have very easy escape abilities, right? But they're in small bursts. What are they escaping to? If they go in here, what are they escaping to?
Nothing. They're just trying to get their Pharah value. Like, well, I mean, the
No,
purpose
no,
of
no,
pushing...
you. So your team, right? If your DPS go in here,
Right.
and they say they do everything that I said they would do before, right? Your Doomfist ease in and then uppercuts and punches out, and your Reaper just like is a little bit ahead of you. Where should they retreat to? Where should Reaper end his shift? Or where should Doomfist end up like if he lands?
I mean, they could play corners, but at the same time, my shield isn't there to guide, I guess.
There, you got it. You know it. It's your shield.
Right.
But if your shield's forward, they have to play cover, but
Right.
they can't. You know. So think of it this way: if you're bunkered up here and you feel like you're not doing anything, you're providing retreat for your DPS. They should be going in so they can bounce back to you.
Right. Okay.
You have the most powerful kill tool in the game, which is pull.
Yeah.
You can still do things. It's just focusing on your life and making sure you don't fortify too early. With Pharah, it's a little different running this comp against Pharah. You are going to want to run into their tanks a little bit, but not past your shield.
Right. So in this scenario, say so the Pharah's coming in main, they're split off to a pact of 2v4, right? Should I walk forward? Should I throw my shield a bit further and not use shift and just play with shield then? And then we see the
I would
opportunity and
check
push.
because their team's so split up here in this specific situation. I think the shield is fine.
Okay.
Right? It gets you undercover. It gets your entire team in, and you don't really want to stay outside too much. You want to against long range compositions with short range compositions. You win by running over their tanks, not their DPS, right?
Right.
So you need to do that, and you do that here. The problem is that you're treating it like Reinhardt, and then you don't provide that anchor for your DPS. Your DPS can just run in here and slap the tanks, right? You got Reaper, they got Pharah. There's no way that your Reaper's going to be forced to shift early. There's no like Doom punching him.
I think my mindset into this was I'm walking forward because I know the Pharah is to my top left, and
Pharah does
if
air
I hold
to
that
you.
shield,
You know
right,
why?
armor,
Armor, and guess who's your off tank?
Sigma. Yeah, has another shield. I see.
Yep. And if things are getting too rough and he notices you're taking a lot of damage, he'll pull his shield. He wants to shield aggressively so your DPS can go in, right? That should be your path of action.
Right.
But if he notices you're taking damage and you say, "Care me," he's going to take away the shield and start marking Pharah and get her to fuck off. No Pharah is going to want to just constantly shoot shields.
Got it.
So you go into here, and here's the issue: is that you for it, but like look to your right and left, you don't see your DPS
Yeah.
because they're still chasing you. There they are. So you go a little bit too early, you push the gun, and then like you get away with it because their Pharah is not getting value.
Watch Pharah coming from behind.
They've no flash. On fire.
Yeah.
But now you're in an odd position.
Yeah.
Let's find the fire. Point fire. Point fire.
See what I mean? You're the first one dead, therefore your team has to play like your team's no longer playing a strategy. They're just aiming to frag. There is no like Orisa, therefore all the strategies out the window. You don't want to be put in that position.
You're up one. You're up one. You're up one. You're up one. You have point control now.
Use.
In terms of comms, you're calming a little bit too much. The way I would limit your comms are where you're going to set up the fight, right? The comms in the beginning were great. I'm going in, push here, I'm putting down, like, I'm running into them, I'm going to put my shield down to them, right? Those comms are fine. You know why?
Because I'm dictating the flow of the fight.
You're dictating the fight. That's exactly what you need to do as a main tank. Every single fight should start off like that. As the fight goes on, you need to shut up more. The main things you need to call are your crucial cooldowns, right? If you don't have shield, or if you're running low, if you have pull, and if you have fortify.
Okay.
Right? Those should be your priority, your crucial cooldowns. Besides that, it's calling when enemies don't have crucial cooldowns. The first thing you should notice in a neutral fight, I like to call it, where you're just kind of staring at each other, or like before the fight begins, has their Orisa used fortify yet? You call that, it's free. Like if you have fortify and she doesn't, you win.
Right. Okay. So just so I have this written down, I want to so the main tank's flowing in the fight. I can call my cooldowns Don't. Is target calling in this meta or with the Orisa?
Not your job. Not your
Okay,
job.
got it.
You if someone's on top of you, like Reaper runs into you, and you have fort, and he's just kind of whacking away at you, you can call him.
Right.
But actively looking for targets to call is not your job because everything dies in one hit.
Right.
It's your Reaper's job or your Doomfist if he doesn't kill the target.
Okay. So in this scenario, when they're past the choke, they're past the door, the far is behind us. Did I make the right call to go back into the far and hold point? Or would it still be better
I
to
wouldn't
run
even
into them?
consider that because you put yourself in a bad position in the first place.
Right. Okay.
Because you no longer have a shield and there's still a far behind you, and what did you get out of this? Like one kill?
Yeah, and we also no
Yeah,
CDs.
come on, walk in the fire. Let's find the fire. Point fire. Point fire. Okay.
Fair.
So like you put yourself in that weird position to begin with.
Right.
Where's he?
Building back right corner.
They have Co. They're gonna come up with Co.
Yeah.
This situation, you throw your shield, but you don't know where they are.
Going back main. You're
So you end up with the suboptimal shield because of this.
building back right.
Notice where your Sigma is?
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to be holding back here. I would think of it like if your Sigma's here, you should be thinking of the map like a line between where he is. So this pillar here, you should own it. You should like throw your shield farther. Because look at this. How is anyone going to be playing behind your shield? Actually, nobody is playing behind your shield currently. Even if you like chucked it out there and played it up here, it would have been better than this one.
Right.
Right corner.
Your shield is what gives you space. If you have a defensive advantage, you put down your shield and you have the shield before them. They have to break the shield to get to you, right? So if the enemy team is approaching and they see no shield, they suddenly have the advantage. Look at all this space they got. It's as if you're attacking this point.
Right.
Corners. Watch fire, brush. Far annoying.
Yeah, they have brush. Yeah,
He's
care.
totally looking for it. Totally looking for it. Here it comes.
That's good calls from you. Knowing that the Pharah has barrage soon, that's more of like a Sigma call, but like you call it, there's no issue with it.
Okay.
Pulling. Mercy off. Mercy one. Dead. I have no CDs. No CDs.
This is what an example of like flooding comms, right? You're doing the right comms, but
you
you're
said it too
repeating
much.
things that aren't priority. You having no CDs isn't as priority as you think it is to everyone else, right? You called your pull, fantastic. You called it loudly, fantastic. You having no CDs doesn't directly correlate to it. The more important call is I have no shields,
Okay.
right? If you're the DPS player and you hear your main tank saying I have no CDs, what is that supposed to do for him? You know? But if you hear I have no shields, he's probably not going to want to retreat on top of you. He's probably going to be forced to play a little bit more aggressively or a little more conservatively behind cover. You see how that like translates over?
Watch you. Walking Cree. Walking
I have
Cree.
post-
Walking
I
on
have
Cree.
potion, I have potion, I have
Pulling.
Play Co.
At this point, as the fight rolls on, you should listen more for your Doomfist. I believe it's the Doomfist job to call pulls, but every pull should have value. This pull has no value because your Reaper isn't close enough and your Doomfist isn't ready. I would say things like I have pull, like I have pull Doom. You ready?
Okay.
We have shoulders.
With a more because you're ringing, you have to kind of like say it longer. But if in a more coordinated team, I would just say like I've got pull, and then like your Doom would immediately respond from there. But because you're ringing, you have to kind of lay things out.
Okay.
We have shield resources. Walk forward. Rest one. Kill the rest of them. Watch Cree to the left. Cree down. Cree one dead. Pulling.
Horse no gold.
Rest no gold. Lucio. In front of us. Doom. Doom to the left. Doom to the left.
This position
yeah.
again. See what I mean?
I'm going past shields too much.
Left.
You don't have fort like this entire time. You don't have fort here in no situation where you have like you don't have fortify here. Don't walk past your shield. It's just as simple as that.
Right.
I think this is a pretty much like every situation, unless it's like 99 and this one kill will win you the game. You know, there's no reason to run past your shield if you have fort. In general, there's no real reason to run past your shield, but sometimes it's the case.
Lucio
Okay.
in front of
But
us.
like you don't have fort here, and you decide to push into 4 people.
Doom to the left.
That's why you need fort.
Yeah.
Chill. Alright, what are we using?
Okay, we have beat for this fight.
At this point, they ask, "What are we using?" Right? You have fortify. I clicked backwards. That's my fault. You have bongo. Let me go back to it.
It's about 9:46 is where we left off.
Thanks.
Horse no gold.
Right here, you have bongo.
Lucio, in front of us. Doom, 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 doom.
The fight goes forward. Then your dude calls that. Hey, what do they have? Right. At this point, you should be saying, "I've got bongo. We're gonna play right here. I'm gonna bongo in the corner. You ready?" Like nothing takes priority over bongo
Okay.
because it's usually a free win. If they counter the bongo, then you flux, right? But like usually bongo in terms of priority is the first one to go out because it's just free.
Okay.
You should be setting up for bongo here. You should be telling your team exactly where you're going to set it up, right? You can kind of bait them around this. I would like how I would play this is I'd play farther back onto the point and like look towards your right with your body like right here,
Right.
right? And you plop the bongo down here and you put the shield right here and you just stare at them coming down the stairs. Because if they dedicate to you, you get a bunch of free damage and you can put your body right there.
So
But-
would it be more value? Say if they have coal, right? The thing
Yep.
the thing that I worry about most of the time is if I'm gonna bongo, I want to make sure it's in an area without coal. But at the same time, if I put it behind a corner and they push back,
If they
bongo
push,
gets no value.
so the area of it, like Cole can't reach from here.
right?
She has to go like around the like to this area, in which case she's like right on top of you. And if she does Cole, you probably incinerate her before anything's coming through. If you've already said you're going to bongo, no one's gonna walk through. Like none of their team is going to be able to get through here without you killing them through the bongo.
Okay.
Okay, we have
But you haven't set it up. Your team has no clue. You're still ult tracking. You can just say like as soon as this goes over, you can just add bongo, play here.
Okay.
we have flux.
They
We have
have
flux.
no. Yeah, they have take ult and go.
I'm locking high ground.
We are.
Yeah, no need to rush high ground. High ground doesn't really benefit you too much when the spawns are this close. If you started walking like early instead of putting down the shield, you might have made it, but
think
it's
I
already
was just
too late.
debating.
Yeah, if you're debating, you can't move. I would just play on the corner and try to bongo.
Right. And now I gave him all this for or not.
Yeah, now your
space.
plan is to bongo blossom, but you've kind of like backed up to this area. This area works. I would just face it this way and then plop it right behind the pillar.
Okay.
Pulling, looking for
Reaper's
pull.
to the left.
As soon as I come out, I'm pulling.
Reaper above.
Pulling now, pulling.
Beat that, beat that.
Looking.
Yep, I am.
I'm looking
Careful.
for it. I'm just looking for it. We hold. They're not doing anything. Pulling now, pulling now, pulling now.
Go.
Yeah. Go, go, go.
See what I mean?
Yeah. They
It's
took
because it
initiative.
isn't said before. You end up having to use beat for their flux, which does nothing because they're not walking forward. You're also not defending your team, so they would die from chip damage if you didn't beat. And you're looking for a pull, which stops you from dealing with any of these threats. Flux also is wasted, and then your bongo goes through at the end, where it gets the least amount of value because people start dying.
Right.
Reaper, no Wraith.
Reaper no Wraith on our bongo.
They used.
Way
we
too
need to-
slow. Way too slow.
They didn't. What are they gonna do? Flux them in there? We can't follow up on that.
It's not no way too slow. It's just not responding. Like this right here. Like how are you supposed to pull this? This isn't your fault. This is literally your team misresponding to what they're doing. They're playing slow. You can literally just stand here.
As soon as question. As soon as they do the bongo coal, we can kite back and play where that Reaper.
You can
is
just walk
coming
off. You can just walk off the point and like just
Yeah.
go to the back there.
Yeah, we don't have
There's
to
no
do
reason to like
anything.
look at all these things they're using, but look how far they are.
Yeah, they can't capitalize. I see what you
No, and like the flux is already out, and you already used beat for it.
Go.
The beat was the mistake because with beat you can usually just like turn it on them, but they didn't commit to their own flux. They just stood there like you saw.
Yeah.
So you probably didn't even need to beat, but then they start dumping everything else, and you guys try to engage into it after that.
Right.
That's the problem. So it's not really anything you can do except like if I was to change this, if they're coming this way, you should have been much closer to ready the bongo blossom.
Go, go, go.
But yeah, like look at all this stuff that's used after.
Yeah, and
They use co.
that puts us at
Yeah,
a
there you go.
disadvantage with ultimates.
Yeah, and now you're stuck with shitty ults. You've got Ko and you got Blossom.
They have they have
I look for Doom out. Saving first pull. Saving
We are
first pull.
going fast, and we are winning.
Them stop left.
These shields. Be really careful of putting it too close to you. So a lot of the time you'll get more value kind of throwing it a little farther.
I look for Doom out. Saving first.
Right here.
Going fast, and we are winning.
See how you're kind of stuck in this location? Throw it a little closer to their shield.
3, 2, 1,
Yeah,
empty
just
game.
a rule of thumb, we should have the Sigma shielding before,
Let's do-
and then deciding with the wrist shield where I'm going to place it, right?
Yep, because you're kind of throwing it out there preemptively and using it as the Sigma shield, but you don't need to.
Does it get more value if I shield past the Arista shield, or should I make it
If-
even with it?
Right here, in this situation, you can't close the distance in time. If you
Right.
could get around this corner and then you like did a speed play where you put down your shield in front of theirs and canceled theirs, maybe. But you're too far away. If you throw your shield behind theirs, you're still shooting your shield and yours probably just dies faster.
Okay.
Fast, and we are winning.
Doom stop left.
3, 2, 1, epic speed.
Walking forward.
On this Doomfist.
On, yeah, Doom left, Doom left.
See, there's your fort. Your shields finally goes down. Blocks missed pull and doom.
Watch Reaper, watch Reaper.
Watch Reaper, I'm on Reaper.
The main problem here is that your DPS don't really have anywhere to back up to. You're playing with their tempo, but you need to understand that your role isn't to run in.
We are winning.
Your role is to anchor. So like if you can go up to here basically, and then just chill, stare down their Orisa, start pumping damage into their shield, right? You don't need to like frag out on every target that goes near you, unless they're like there's like a Lucio on top of you or something, and then just it's free damage. But like your job is to anchor. Watch your DPS during this fight instead of thinking about yourself.
On this Doomfist.
How's he supposed to back up?
Yeah.
There's nowhere for him to run. If he shifts, he ends up like in the middle of
Reaper.
Pulling Doom.
I see.
See the issue?
I got.
Your DPS have nowhere to back up to, and your Sigma has no one to like trade shields with because you're constantly going forward, so they have to use like shit with you. And it works as an aggressive play at the beginning. You're getting kills, you're getting damage, but there's no like sustained fight. It's just all one burst.
Right.
Watch Reaper, I'm on Reaper.
Reaper. Stay Reaper.
Do how many CDs?
Can we use the ult that I call, please?
Yeah.
Co into Doom ult. That's what I said.
They have Reaper ult. They have Co again. They should have beat.
Doom into Blossom.
Yep, we are using a
Go first.
very aggressively and going in with that. Okay.
I'm saving shield. Blaze, you just go in whenever.
Care Reaper flanks. I don't know where he is. and he
Before
has
the
ult.
Doom engages, would I want to put my shield down before he punches in, just so he has an established baseline
No.
of where to come back to?
No, Doom can if he's using his cooldowns before he ults, he can just use them.
Right.
He doesn't really need much cover, if anything, like a Sigma shield. But the point of it is that he can do all of that, and then he has a free get out of jail free card.
Pulling.
What needs to happen here is that your pull needs to be coordinated with his drop, which kind of happens, but you don't really get value out of it.
Care Reaper flanks. I don't know.
Right here, you just need to set up. Like you just need to set up, put your S down, and then let your Reaper just chunk shields. But
Right.
like your Sigma shield has been up for so long that it's like
Cracking.
it's gone before you actually like do anything. See?
Yeah, and
Just go in whenever.
Care
never
Reaper
really use my
flanks. I
shield
don't know where
here.
he is and he has Blossom.
Reaper TB on.
Pulling.
DPS are behind him.
Reaper, I'm on Reaper. Reaper
That's
stop,
also
Reaper's
bad
one, no way,
shield.
Reaper one, okay. We get out. The DPS is just
So the issue again comes back to you didn't set up where you wanted to fight, so your DPS really didn't know where to fight, and your Sigma's just kind of waiting. And then your Doom ends up whiffing because no cooldowns were burned because there was no pressure on them. So your pull actually gets countered, and then he gets sent into space.
Right.
back line.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yeah, beat.
I
Building.
have it.
Okay, we have
Oh, Doom high.
This is fine because like you set up the area where to go and you haven't pushed past that, but it's already too late because they start getting ultimates.
Doom is one above.
Is that the Reaper?
So there's like nothing for you to do here because you don't have bongo for their bongo.
Okay.
Just don't get
Left
picked.
side. Left side.
Looking to shift that punch as they come in.
Yep, left side, right here.
Their Reaper's left. Everyone else is right.
Erden, yeah.
We can take point from here, they don't have me.
Erden walking. Reaper TP top.
Yep.
Reaper half. Reaper in a wraith.
No right?
Don't focus so much on those guys. Let your DPS deal with it, and if they bring them low enough, you can deal with it.
Right. So, where should my damage be mainly going? Into shield, Azarissa?
Into shield.
We can take point from here, they don't have me.
Erden walking.
It's not called shield shooting for nothing. You're literally just shooting shield. Don't worry about that guy. Like that. Unless he's on top of you, you pretty much don't have to like shoot him. I noticed like
Okay.
you lose a lot of value because like their Orisa's just focusing on you, but you're trying to shoot everything around you.
Doom.
Kite right.
That also like demolishes you.
Right.
That loses the fight immediately.
Then. Watch Reaper in the corners. Check corners. Reaper in main.
Reaper close, Reaper
Right,
half.
right, back
See what I mean? Like
Yeah.
their shield is cracked, but you've got like 4 people on one flanker, and there's no like at no point have you been punishing them for being in a really bad spot.
Point. Doom. Done.
It's usually like the enemy team making mistakes where you get kills.
Control point.
I have wall on 2.
Turn. Thing out.
Who's in their team?
Yeah, Lucio. Playing.
Yeah, you're calling targets so much that it's like compromising your job, which is to tank. Give your Reaper room to talk if he's already in there, you know? Like
Okay.
you can call your pull, don't need to call targets. You're literally just there for flak damage. You're suppressing fire. You
Right.
don't do anywhere near the same amount of damage as Doomfist and Reaper. Don't think like you do.
Mm-hmm.
The only time is like if you're literally on top of somebody and they're not moving, you know, like your damage output can't be consistent with them because they can one shot and you really can't.
Right.
By the way,
Reaper.
Orisa. Turn.
Breathing.
Like why does it matter that you're on Orisa? It matters that your Reaper's on Orisa, you know?
Yeah, because it's doing the most damage.
He's doing the
Like-
most damage. If he starts calling it, you can kind of like shoot at him a little bit, but like your goal should be pumping that damage into the shield and setting up pull plays along with keeping your shield up and your life up.
Right.
Doom no abilities. More underneath.
The bottom, I think.
Okay. They have duel. They have code. They have Sigil. They are 75 on bongo. Actually, they should have bongo.
Can we start right
Uh,
back? Can we start back right?
They have tank ults. They have DPS
Yeah.
ults. They
Point.
have 80 on B. They
we
don't
still
have
Back right.
Or
Yeah,
Bongo
bongo
cover.
bone.
We're cutting right side. We're cutting right side. Be ready to cut right.
Bongo kill.
There's a Reaper above us.
Okay.
Somebody when I see.
Okay, we talked about this before, just a little bit. How are you going to set up your bongo here? Your team said bongo co, so that might like give you an indication. How are you going to play to where your bongo can't die? You're going to get value out of it, and where are you going to tell your team to go in?
The first thing that comes to my mind is the wall to my right, the little right wall. Bongo there as soon as they push into the sign and go into that.
Okay,
As soon as you call, I'm bongoing.
other way around. As soon as you bongo, you go.
Oh, okay.
Bongo's the first thing. Remember, like if you put bongo out, they're gonna immediately start backing up. So you need to just do it and then drop it. You also should be a lot tighter with the corner, because you're trying to get them to come into you.
Go.
And if you code like see how they're already in.
Yeah.
If you're on that corner and they start approaching you, you co. They can't run away from it.
Yeah.
TPing behind.
But now they get into your bongo and you can't really stop them from killing it, so you lose all the value.
Yeah. We can let them get space for free. Or shoot.
Yep.
That's
Reaper one.
Pulling
Do
doom.
one.
Nice.
Play to live.
Yeah, playing the live. Yeah, no, you're gonna walk forward a little bit.
Moira.
Watch boobs.
Orisa
to
no
the
gold.
left.
Somebody top right. Lucia.
Pulling.
To Lucio, it's fine.
He's out.
Down.
Nice job.
Okay, what did they use? Nothing.
They use nothing. It's
They
fine.
have everything.
We have Blizzard here.
We
Yeah.
Blizzard, yeah.
The biggest issue I think is like how you set yourself up pre-fights. Because that's something you need to pay a lot of attention to. When it's with your ult, when it's like without your ult, you kind of just play the same way regardless. And there's a lot of times where the enemy team gets to just walk into you without any punishment. So be careful of that. Holding too tights on chokes is usually the issue there. With Reinhardt, you want to hold right on top of the choke because you want to meet them if they come around, right?
right. To get
With
the
Orisa,
first
with the Orisa, if you're around the corner and their Orisa decides to come here, she's gonna run into you and she's gonna cancel your shield. So you want to play a little bit of distance so you can like chunk them down before they reach you,
I see.
and like keep that in mind on chokes. Like this one, for example, is like fine because they have to cross through here first. But on the other side of the point, you would want to hold on. Like remember, like Ilios well holds with like Bastion, how they have to like run across and like risk getting booped and all sorts of shit to try to connect with you. Think of it kind of like that because you're playing Orisa.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're good. Back.
So like right here, instead of on that choke, a little bit farther back. The only time you play like on that choke is when you have bongo,
Turn, looking for pull.
or if you're planning on ulting first.
Point him.
We're down Reaper.
That's a good call.
Do one. No pull. You gotta use Sigil.
Those are good calls. Like if you lock down Doom, I'm pulling him, and then at this point you should be kind of silent. You've got really nothing going for you except for like hear me, or like I'm in the pit right now.
Yeah, Doom dead.
Reaper. Huge.
Because you being in the pit means a lot. It's basically it's a CC for like 5 seconds.
All right.
I'm here. It's a Reaper. More needs to die.
At this point, you lost track of like where the fight's going on, so you put your shield in their zone,
Mm-hmm.
You needed to like back up to your team, then put your shield down. You don't want to have your back to the enemy.
Alright, because I'm kind of just in the middle of their back line.
Yeah,
Converge on me.
yeah, and you didn't notice it, and you kind of just walked out, and then you're like, oh, here I am, but your team backed up.
Yeah.
Where's no gold? Where's no gold?
Restore, restore, restore.
That's right.
Moira.
Dum 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 dum. I'm on. Reaper. Reaper, stay Reaper.
Please see top right.
So cute. Daring. Should go hog.
Yeah, I'm gonna move to a payload.
Just lose if we don't.
Okay. Well, I think
They're
for
four.
me.
He's not.
Nine.
It burns cooldowns like E that I need.
Okay, we're gonna go top right. I'm gonna scout top right. No one
Rolling
up
standard.
here. No one up.
No one's
They're
right.
on main default.
I'm walking
Yeah.
main,
No
shielding.
one's left.
Maze on left.
Main.
Oh,
Mm.
No one
Rolling
up
standard.
here. No one up.
No one's
They're
right.
on main default.
so attacking Kings Row, you have 3 routes. You have into hotel, you have main, and then you have right side pillar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Throwing it down like this, you're not nearly close enough to capitalize on it,
Right.
and it forces you to go walk down that way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I don't agree with this. First off, I think you get like, you're planning on putting it somewhere a little bit closer, but you get walled up anyways. But like, still,
Yeah.
it doesn't have any value here. You need to be walking into the right side.
Alright.
Reaper wall.
Generally, the safest route, if you don't know what they have, is you walk right side and then you like use your shield this way so you can cross.
Okay.
I was in with him. I
Is
could break.
the move to the right, is that also an entry route, like through the right side theater? Up
Right
stairs
side
to
into
the
high
window?
ground?
Yeah.
No, because you don't get any value off of it.
Okay.
You don't have like hit scans or anything. Like high ground is value. Don't get me wrong, but like if you're running Reaper, you're gonna drop anyways.
Alright.
Yeah, we need
I
you to
will
break
die.
that.
You need to.
You have
Like
to.
that.
We just lose if we don't.
Okay.
Going high.
Yeah, like that. This way could work, but I would just walk into pillars. I wouldn't go to high ground. You don't really get anything off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Reaper's in. Wait, help her second. Pulling.
See how you end up fighting here anyways.
Yeah.
That's the reason why the enemy team cuts you off here, and you're in a really bad position with your back to the wall.
No
Yeah.
CDs.
We have wall.
Yeah. Shielding. Pulling.
Breathing?
On Sigma.
On sig half.
You still need to play your shield. You're like dancing, and you don't need to.
Yeah.
Taking a lot of flak damage. That's hard for your Moira to heal.
Reaper on me.
Reaper's in left. Reaper in left.
Reaper.
Shielding, pulling, Lucio.
Lucio.
Lucio one. I have no CDs right now. I have no pull.
They have blizzard soon.
One May.
Me no block.
Heard, look for pull, pulling.
This is all fine. It's just understanding where you need a path. Remember, you like set that tempo. You have to tell your team what you're doing. You have bongo here. I should expect you to be like talking about your bongo. After you get like, a lot of teams have like dedicated shot callers, and that's like an issue. But some people tend to like it. Like usually just one person calling everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't agree with that, but it's just by team. So
Right.
like what I would recommend for you specifically is just like, as soon as the enemy team. As soon as the enemy team's ults are scouted, you should be planning out how to use your ult if you have it,
Okay.
and set someone else through it. Like I would assume you have Blossom here, yeah. So if you just hold on the corner really tightly and then force them to come into you because you look like you're playing a little too aggressively, and you could hide your Reaper. You don't even have to hide your Reaper. You can just have them speed boost behind you, and then just Blossom. It works out really well because like usually Blossom is a shitty ult. But you add bongo to it, it happens too fast for most teams to react to. Otherwise, even if they don't die, they're chunked.
Right. You said earlier that bongo is basically on itself a fight win condition. Is
Bongo
it
by
when
itself
you-
is a fight win condition if you use it in the right location. If you're using it reactively, it's shitty. If you use it first, it's the best ult in the game.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Flux blizzard.
Heard.
Like here, you're not in any position to use bongo. You should be on that corner.
Mhm.
Pull with the blizzard or pull with the flux?
Potato.
Flux.
Pull with the flux. Pull with
Pulling
the
with the
flux.
flux, ready.
You don't point with me?
Yeah, you're.
Like you don't see jack shit, so they're gonna get the first move.
Right.
I'm gonna.
Pulling.
Care.
And you end up using flux and
Mason.
whatever.
Doing the thing.
Right.
But like if you bongo here, it doesn't matter because you're on the corner. You don't give them any room to use their ultimates, and you use it, and they start burning ults. But you've already killed 3.
Right. Yeah.
That's why it's so important for you to think about using your bongo first.
They're freezing. They're all freezing. I'm dead.
But like, look how much they get to do because they walk through that.
I killed May.
Like your pulls are fine. Your shields need a lot of work, and your fortifiers are just forced because you put yourself into bad positions.
After they flux, you're gonna early engage with flux.
Alright, heard.
But like, look how much you end up using. Like, this is a high priority. This is high priority. This is high priority, and it could have been resolved if you just used this plus this.
Right.
We are using.
You probably could have snowballed all the way to the end.
They're not even
Yeah,
texting
go,
their
go,
May.
go, 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 go.
TP.
Alright, go. Yeah, TP.
The shield's good, because you know why the shield's good?
Because I get to hold the corner. Or they
It
have.
gets you. It gets you
the.
Well, it gets you the corner, and you get to walk
We should go.
from here
We're using code to sustain the flux.
They're not even texting their May. They're not even.
all the way to the corner,
Right. Go.
and you get to steal the cart from them.
TP.
We live. It's fine.
Bongo's bad because you end up using your fort. I would just wait for your shield cooldown,
Alright. Yeah, chase.
but they end up backing up anyways because you end up using coalescence with it.
Reaper's on the right.
Pulling.
Honey, I can't.
They can all die. They're all dead. May.
May.
I'm on card by
Come
the
on,
way.
stay.
Yeah, you guys should be careful.
We just gotta say that's it.
Yeah,
No,
no,
we should-
Lucio maybe. Lucio.
Okay, nice.
Oh.
Right foot
Okay.
warrior.
Yeah, we should cap this for free.
If they bongo,
If not, I'm
the
shutting you.
blizzard fight.
I didn't
No.
see it.
I don't see
No,
it.
okay.
So the common issue I see is that the enemy team gets to walk into you because you don't have any. You're playing very reactively, which shouldn't happen. You should always like push to where you can go, and then push it further with ultimates as soon as like it goes through. The mentality you should take is that you should always be going first.
Right.
Doomfist should always punch first. You should always be able to set up your ultimates first. There's no such. If the enemy team goes first, you put yourself at a disadvantage, even if you have like more resources and more space.
Right.
They have bongo code then.
They might recontest. No.
No, I have wall.
If they try, we can flux.
They have bongo code.
They're playing close corner. They're playing
So
close
just to
corner.
make sure I understand,
Say
like, so you can play it. What I'm gonna, so when I call the best opportunity to take a fight, just to make sure I got that. So you can pull Doom E into it, but when's the most optimal opportunity to like know when to take the fight? Like as soon as you see an enemy's like figure, or what's the best?
When you see them, when you have a corner and you see them come around the corner, when you have them in your sights for the first time, when they're in their Doom's range, when you know your Reaper can connect.
Okay.
It's based off of your DPS.
So the DPS basically call the engage.
You should already have the corner, but like your DPS should call the engage from there.
Okay.
I know you're there.
They use ball on me.
I can
They're
wall.
gonna engage. They're gonna engage.
Best places to go are like on corners because corners deny vision and you can do a lot of weird things around them.
Right.
You should always be trying to fight for corners, especially because this composition can't go backwards. Once you're there, there's really no backing up.
Reaper. More. May behind.
Yeah, we do not have a counter code for that. We need.
Yeah, and because they didn't play corner there, they just walked through us for free.
Charge.
Yup.
They literally gave us a free wall fight it too. No.
No?
No, there's 75 on DPS holds and B.
Okay, we flux here.
Flux.
We have to go early.
Saving
If
shield.
they,
Saving
if they
shield.
beat it, we blossom.
Okay.
Okay, amping speed now.
Going.
Pull.
Pulling.
Oh.
First no gold. They have no gold. No.
I have an issue with that, but it's not something you can really do anything about. Fluxing first is really bad. For that reason, you have to force cooldown somehow before you flux. Like you have to do like a neutral engage and then flux afterwards to secure the fight. You shouldn't really look for like pull fluxes unless you know that the enemy team doesn't have anything.
Okay.
CDs. No defensive CDs.
You're even.
Like imagine if you had pull flux here after they use all this stuff. It's great.
Right. And so without wasting too much value on CDs, would it be better to have your Reaper just TP in, force Sarissa Gold and stuff like that, and then Wraith out?
Reaper TP's bad. I would just set up for a fight. Reaper can get taxied by Sigma. The only time you Reaper TP is if they really lose track of the fight. And if you can get away with it. Sometimes Reaper TPing in is a death sentence.
Right. Especially with May, because you can get walled off and just,
Yeah.
run onto.
Reaper against May is difficult. You pretty much never want to TP in general.
No more, no more, no more.
Point. Arista no gold, Arista no
I
gold.
don't know why they beat it.
May. Cart.
You're right.
You're down your right now.
Man inside the block, killer.
May.
That's a big sacker.
The Lucio spawn first. The Lucio and Moira are alive. Lucio and Moira.
We have a blizzard.
At this point, I would avoid putting your shield down on the cart because remember you're the anchor. If the cart's continually moving, like if you end up over here, how's that shield supposed to help you when they're coming out the sides?
Yeah, right.
You should be setting up like where the cart is, but on the floor.
So the boxes to the left, right there, would be an ideal spot for a shield, or would you just suggest
I
like,
would
behind the
just-
cart?
Behind the cart, like right there. Like if
Right.
you just sit there, they can't do anything. They have to come into you, and now you have all the space. And remember what we talked about? They don't have any corners to play around. They have to play this.
Mm-hmm.
This is extremely shitty to play around with a May.
Oh my god.
Also, if you're on the cart, you get a chance of getting booped.
Yeah, I'm on him. Bongoing. Boing.
The bongo's a bit late.
Watch boobs.
I mean, you didn't have it in general because you were in a weird location.
Lucio May. Lucio.
Get Reaper.
We're good.
Nice.
So the few things I would get out of this, like I feel like this is going to be a reoccurring theme. So the few things I would get out of this is you need to keep track of your own ultimate and then like take authority of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to know exactly what you want to do with your ult, and you need to set up your fights so that your DPS have room to make the play. Stop playing so aggressive. It's a general like statement, but like Orisa isn't an aggressive character in this patch. She's the definition of defensive play. You sit there and you wait for your team to come back to you, and then you can go aggressive after picks start going through.
Right.
Any other questions?
I'm trying to think of them. I was thinking of questions all night, trying to figure out, because getting a coaching time with you and trying to figure out as much questions in my head is like, I'm trying to figure it out. So switching off to this meta to PTR meta, Orisa has a little bit more tankiness, but the shields, basically every shield in the game is reduced by 40%, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking the meta's going to go into a lot more brawly and kind of close quarters.
Yeah.
I just want your thoughts on that if you have any.
I won't divulge any thoughts on the meta right now because I'm also still working with the team.
Right, okay.
In terms of Orisa though, like Orisa's, you have to just think of it like she's not just a shield bot anymore. You can play her a little bit more aggressively.
Okay. Alright. Well, I'm trying to think, man. I mean, thank you again for this. This has been really helpful.
Yeah, no problem.
And thanks for reaching out. I really, really appreciate it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's what I wrote down. I don't know if it's all correct or not, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think what else to say, but you kind of covered everything that I thought I needed to work on.
Pretty much, yeah.
Thank you again. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, you too, John.